Have you achieved success and a high income, but still lack personal fulfillment and work-life balance? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful But Struggling podcast. Join us as Erin, Eunicia, Joanne, and Mim share transformative insights and practical strategies just for you. Discover real stories and lessons that will elevate your personal satisfaction, professional accomplishment, and financial empowerment.
Welcome to another episode. I am with my super co-host, Dr. Erin Hurley. And at the time of this recording, it's been kind of rough last couple of months. A lot of things going on in the world, several natural disasters in the United States. This was also an election year. And we wanted to talk about how it is when things don't go your way. And we are fed with so much information. It's what's around us, it's in the news, what the conversations that people are having. Even if you're trying to take a break and you go into Facebook, it's there. And it's easy for our brains to focus on the negative. And we want to learn to shift that. And Erin, I would love to hear when our brain goes into that negative loop and it's kind of focused on the bad things, what we cannot control, how can we use our brain in our favor to maybe focus more in solutions and have something that serves us more?
I love that. And when we raise awareness about what is easy for us, as Joanne was alluding to, and we've talked about this in the last couple of episodes, our brains are wired for the negative. So it's no wonder that when you go on a coffee break or chat with your friends or have a conversation, it's very easy to have it go in the negative because we're wired that way. And that was to keep us alive back when you went to the watering hole and there might have been a lion in the grass by the watering hole. That's no longer the case. But our brain wiring hasn't changed. When we're aware of that, we can intentionally go in and try to rewire it and maybe think about it as a pattern interrupt and saying, I know, brain, you are something that's going to try to take me down that negative pathway. I'm not going there. And you can use a pattern interrupt, sometimes literally talking to yourself in the third person. I could say, Erin, come on. You hear that conversation going on with this group of people you're talking to, or I might go like, oh, that person keeps going to one thing after another. That's negative, negative, negative. And so I actively say, I'm going to intervene and do a pattern interrupt. And every time they start going down that negative pathway, I might kind of interrupt that conversation and insert something along the positive. I might put in something that's distracted. Oh my gosh, look at what's going on over there. And then the conversation can naturally transition. So thinking about a pattern interrupt, sometimes it might be so significant. Maybe it's your child having a tantrum or something, or they're just out of sorts. Sometimes you could do a pattern interrupt and you might like loudly clap your hands in front of their face, and that loud noise might go, whoa, what just happened here? And so you can use pattern interrupting to kind of snap that negativity to a stop, or gently kind of guide the conversations into a different area and actively take a role as a leader in the conversation and pull it into a more positive direction. Joanne, as a psychiatrist, you're so full of wisdom, and I love hearing your input. When I talk about pattern interrupts and being a leader in pulling conversations in different directions, what kind of ideas come to mind, or what are some things that you've done to help with that?
Yes, and I do love pattern interrupts. And you might be thinking, what are they talking about? What does that mean, pattern interrupts? And it's quite literal. When you find yourself stuck in a loop of negative thinking, and maybe we can rewind a little bit, and it's you using that negative emotion as kind of like a trigger of there's something going on that's not good. I'm not feeling well. And pause, acknowledge your feelings, and then say, what can I do to stop this? And that's kind of where the literal pattern interrupt comes in. So it's a tool that's not super fancy. We're not saying let's reframe the thoughts, let's, acknowledge all of that's going on. Where is this coming from? All of those are really good tools that we use in coaching. But the pattern interrupt is something that like you can have in your back pocket, that you can access quickly. And it's also an alert to your central nervous system, like we're done, like we're not going there. It's like a sharp right turn all of a sudden. And you might have to go back to the emotion, but at least you kept it from snowballing and getting bigger. And yes, it is a different way. We talk a lot about rewiring our brain, and this is another way. And this is also part of, if you studied neurolinguistic programming, that you do. And yes, humor is a way to pattern interrupt, and we don't mean it in a minimizing way, but we can almost be funny with ourselves, like, oh, there goes my brain making me feel very guilty, I don't want to go there. Right, so we can even say like that. With, it's not minimizing the emotion, it's just looking at it from a different angle so that we can actually do something with it and not let it blind us and get us into a black hole.
Love that. And as you talk about the rewiring of our brain, one of my coaching clients talked to me about this visual that I love, and she says, when you're going on the highway, that's your old pattern. It's so easy. It's been paved. It's smooth. That's where our brains want to go. That's the wiring you've had. That's that negative thing. When people are having that conversation and everybody's throwing out the complaints or talking about all the disasters and the negative things, it's easy to just jump on that highway and ride along with everybody else going 55 miles per hour or whatever it is. And yet my client talked about, when you do that new path, it's like hacking through the jungle with a machete.
Hmm.
Not getting on that paved asphalt highway, you're hacking through the jungle with a machete. And so if you think about that, the first time you go hacking through, it's thick and there's no path there. You're creating a path the first time, it's going to be so difficult. The next time, maybe a little bit less difficult. The more you go down that next path, it may be uncomfortable. It may be you don't like swinging that machete. You'd rather jump on that asphalt highway. But if you think about, wait a minute, which is the better path? In the long run, it may be worth that extra effort to create that new neural pathway that can, with time, go from going through the jungle, hatching through the pathway with your machete, that can eventually turn into that asphalted highway that gets easy, but it takes time and repetition.
Hmm.
And so
I
can you get through that and get to, like, it used to be hard and now it's easy because you've gone that path more than once.
Yes, I've used a similar analogy with the highway and kind of the little rocky road on the side. And because it takes intention to pause and then say, it would be easier, but I'm trying to build this new way of thinking, this new way of acting to get different results. That's part of what we're here. And Erin, I want you to also, if we can make a distinction of why this mindset shifts, especially when things are not going well or not going our way, why is it particularly important for the woman physician listening to us?
Yeah. I've shared this before, that as a woman physician, we're role models. People look up to us. We are oftentimes in leadership positions, whether it's on our team or an official leadership position. Our patients are looking up to us, our children, if we are a parent, and we are role models for our community, whether we like it or not. So as you think about, this analogy of the going through the jungle with a machete, if you're the first one on that path and you're role modeling, I'm going to take the high road. I'm going to take the more difficult path, not the easy path. Come along with me. Now think about that role modeling you're doing, and then you bring another person along. Now you've got two people creating that new pathway. Now you've got three people, and that third person invites a fourth person. Now you've got a whole community of people going on that new machete pathway through the jungle. How much more quickly can you create that paved highway, not just for you, but for your community, when you choose to say, it's not always going to be easy, but when I create this new path for me and the community around me, you're basically changing the culture. So you may not be able to change the big culture, but can you change the microculture starting with yourself and then adding to that? Can you change the microculture of your family, of your work cohort, of your call group, of your office, and then get different results than what the norm is? Because as women physicians, I don't want to be a downer, but I do like to share some of the research statistics that I've found, trying to help women not fall into those traps, not fall into what's typical and normal. So some of the things we're talking about when things don't go your way, as a women physician, I'm going to share 3 statistics that I think are important for you to know. One is that we spend more time on our patient care, in the room with patients and in the electronic health records, getting our charting and our work done. Those don't work in your favor. For women physicians who work over 40 hours per week, we have higher levels of divorce. For men physicians, the numbers go in the opposite. And the only protective factor, if you're a married woman physician, is if you're married to another physician, that helps mitigate some of those higher divorce rates. And I've got more, but I'm going to stop with 3. When you realize the odds are stacked against you, then I just want to raise your awareness and say, okay, those odds are stacked against me. What can I do? Me, I'm not married to a physician. I'm married to a firefighter. And so when I realized I'm at risk in my marriage, being married to a non-physician, what do I need to pay really close attention to? That if I want my marriage to succeed or even thrive, what do I need to do differently? When the odds are stacked against me and things are not going to go my way easily because I'm a woman physician. And let me bring more intention. And Joanne and I talk about this all the time. I'm going to bring more intention to my marriage and say, I'm not going to give you my leftover energy. I'm not going to give you the crumbs at the end of the day. I'm going to do that one extra step and come over and give you a kiss before I leave. I'm going to say thank you for, the things that I see that you did. I'm going to put some more effort into it because I want my relationship to survive and thrive. And so that's where let's use our understanding of the research based numbers that aren't going our way and say, okay, I know you're there and I'm going to intentionally overcome you. If I know that women spend 1.5 times longer in the electronic health records than men, what resources are out there? That's why I teach my course about, getting away from the pajama charting. There are resources out there. Use the resources to say, how can I do high quality charts and spend less time? How can I get more done with less time and effort? And we've talked about that. So let's just see. And then if you find a way to succeed, share that with your coworkers. Share that with others so that you can share those wins and successes. And we've talked about that ripple effect and help make it so that your office culture, your medical community, your group of colleagues is having different outcomes than what's typical. What are your thoughts about that, Joanne?
Yes, and my brain was going on a tangent of these topics that we're bringing that are particularly important for us as women physicians. And you're talking about statistics, and of course, as a psychiatrist, my brain goes to what we've shared here before. Of we are already feeling more exhausted. We're already disconnected from our emotions. We're already dealing with our mood going up and down. So when things don't go our way, that fuels some of that negativity that's already there, and it just makes us feel even more out of control, that we're losing more of our autonomy. And this mindset shifts that you're talking about, this pattern interrupts, the thinking about us as role models, can be very protective as well from all these other negative consequences. So it's not just to feel better, but it's also protective from, right, like those more negative situations that we're trying to avoid. And we talk so much about perfectionism and boundaries and, imposter syndrome, and I can see all of those things improving with what you're sharing of this mindset shift of, okay, these are all the negative things that are going on. It's easy for us to go there, and we'll have facts that will feed that, but we also have facts that feed what's going well, what is not wrong, things that are making us feel more of that sense of aliveness and fulfillment. So, my heart beats a little bit faster when I hear all these things. I'm obviously very passionate about our overall well-being and feeling better.
I love that. And that kind of goes into the next area I wanted to talk about. And that's, what can we do about it when things aren't going our way? And Joanne, you just shared that. Let's ask ourselves, when we ask ourselves questions are so powerful. Your brain wants to solve the question. We can plant seeds to our subconscious brain to start mulling over that. But asking yourself the question, what do I have control over? And can you learn to refocus on what areas, and again, maybe they're teeny tiny. Some people say, I don't have control over big pharma. I don't have control over big hospital systems. I don't have control over the big HMO that I work for. And yet, I bet if you ask yourself, where do I have control? Do I have some influence or persuasion? Where do I have some agency? You've got some areas that you do. And I've alluded to some of those before, whether that's number one, over yourself. Start with yourself. What do you have control over with yourself? The voice that you speak to yourself with. So start here. Number one, what do you have control over with yourself? Number two is, where do I have control in the people that I influence? Again, maybe you are an unofficial or official leader in your organization. Maybe you're a role model or a mentor for others. Maybe you interact with students or healthcare providers in training. Maybe you're part of a Facebook group. And I know for myself, when I was the medical director at my clinic, and I was taking what I learned as a coach and using that and saying, how can I influence my culture? And I instituted something like a walk after our morning evaluations were over and inviting staff. So the old norm used to be you're chained to your computer all throughout lunch and you don't take breaks because you always have more work to do. And I was like, I know this isn't healthy. I know taking breaks, intentional breaks, strategic breaks are actually going to help me function better, help my decision making be better, help my energy. And if I take a break walking around, that's going to shift my energy. It'll help my socialization. So many kind of layers to something. Do I have control over? Can I take a break? I just coached someone this morning. Can you take 7 to 15 minutes a day to move your body? And how will that impact your energy? Can you find control to move your body for 7 minutes a day? You might say, I really can. Or if it's not 7 minutes, what about 5? What about 2? And so how can you make those decisions? And then how can you use that to impact the people around you? And then can you take it to the next level, right? And say, is it possible for me to change the culture? And how can I grow that impact and share the positive ripple effect of what I'm doing? And if there's research-based evidence, I've got lots of it about breaks and about socializing, about moving your body and how that gets us better outcomes. And so it's actually a win, not just for you as an individual, as a woman physician. It's actually a win for your organization, for your patients, for the quality of care you're giving, for your family. There's so many layers to that. And when you can stop and say, oh, wow, I really do have more control over not just myself, but my community and my surroundings. Let's just start there and see where it goes.
And what a neat way to also bring it all together. Some of the things that we've been talking in the last episodes of managing our energy, shifting our mindset, our gratitude, um, having clarity of the things that we want. Because as women in medicine, we are already at risk of burnout, changes in our mood, right? And the overworking that we wear as a badge. And reminding ourselves that even when things don't go our way, we can remind ourselves of the things that we can control. There are things that we can do, like the pattern interrupts that we talked about. Reminding ourselves that we are role models, that's so important. I love that filter. I use it all the time. And bringing more intention. And to bring more intention, we are forced to know what's going on, pause and look at it from a little bit of a distance to make different decisions. And that's just beautiful. And then also how we can refocus by asking better questions and shifting our energy and taking it to the next level. I love all of this as individual points of things to shift and move forward. And Erin, anything that comes to mind, just even hearing me reflecting on what you just shared, that you want to add?
Well, one of the books I read in the last year talked about how powerful, I think it was called The Gap and the Gain. It's a great resource, just really looking at where you're at. Can we look at mistakes and things not going our way as lessons to help us have a better future? And it really talked about this magical hour, the most powerful hour of our day. And what they said, it's the hour before you go to bed. And can we be more intentional with what we're feeding our brains in the hour before we go to bed, getting off our electronic devices and really feeding our brain maybe with 3 things. We've been talking about gratitude with last week's episode. And can we feed our brains what we're grateful for? And then maybe 3 things that we want to accomplish or that we have the ability to accomplish. You don't even have to call it a goal. And just feeding our brains those little things and then letting us mull it over in our sleep, letting our subconscious take over, getting out of our executive functioning brain with that we spend so much time over, and really pay attention. And if you can't do the hour before bed, maybe it's the 5 or 10 minutes, that last 5 or 10 minutes before your head hits the pillow. Can you afford to take ownership of those few minutes and just really be intentional with what you're thinking about, what you're planning for, and then just see the ripple effect of that if you do that consistently? And then I would love to see, where are you at in a week's time doing that? Where are you at in a few weeks' time? Where are you at by the end of the year, which is just around the corner? And with those tiny little microscopic changes consistently, you can have much more control than you think.
I hope you are leaving this call as inspired as I am. And I hope that you're all getting so much benefit from this podcast. And please, I know we keep on asking, but it's so important for us. If you could go to that page where it says go to show, scroll down and leave us a rating and a review. Give us feedback. What are some other topics that you want us to talk about? And stay tuned for our next episode.
Don't miss out on more strategies that will elevate you to new heights. Visit successfulbutstruggling.com now, where you'll discover exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with each of us individually. There you can dive deeper into how you, too, can take your personal and professional game to the next level. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Number 1, connect with us on the website. And number 2, tune in to the next episode.